Ahlan wa sahlan. Andrew here. I'm running over the imperative mood. Fal alam, fal al amr. And this is my final project. So for the introduction, what is the imperative tense in Arabic? Fal al amr. Uh, it's how you directly issue command and requests and how they're said. That's kind of similar to English, like you go play, you all study, or just in general, like study for the exam when a teacher tells you, or when your boss tells you, do this at your job, or your mom says, go to your room or clean your laundry. All of that comes down to the imperative tense. And how it's done in Arabic is it's basically just a modified version of the present tense that we're going to go over in the next slide. And then there are three main cases we're going to go over. And all of this is based on the second person conjugations in the present tense. So basically, to conjugate this, for all conjugated words, you're going to drop the first letter in some way, shape, or form. So you'd cut the, for adros, if you were going to use that, you could say tadros, and you would cut off the ta at the beginning. And then for a singular male conjugation, you drop any short vowel or accent and add the sukun. So it would be you would add that just to the last letter, so the ra on andros, or the sa. Yeah, the last letter of the word you add the sukun to. So for the singular female conjugation, you drop the noon at the end of the prefix suffix it adds. Um, and other than that, you keep the word pretty much the same, minus the universal condition we talked about at the beginning of the slide. And then for the dual tense, again, you drop the noon and keep the word the same. So it's a similar kind of process. And then for the plural male tense, for the plural male tense, you change the noon to an alif, so it's kind of like in the subjunctive tense, the wa at the end. I think it's silent though, you don't pronounce it. So it's silent, so you don't pronounce it. I don't think I know. For the you plural female, you only need to drop the first letter of the conjugated word, um, and that's basically it. You can the suffix at the end of it is just a noon, so that's just an easy way to remember. It's just kind of dropping the first letter off that conjugation, and that brings us to four. My keyboard. There we go. So there are three main clauses. These are just kind of like how to conjugate the verbs based on their structure. Um, and that brings us into case one. This one's kind of a catch-all. I have yudhakar on the side there. And so this is the primary case for conjugation, just in general. You basically just follow the rules that I listed out thus far, and you get to the imperative tense. And that brings us to case two. This one is going to see our first bit of like irregularity in it. So this case is used for verbs with the second letter it has a sukun on it. So when dropping the first letter, now we add an alif with a khasra under it. So talab becomes ilab, just to round that out. Just kind of changes like that. That brings us to our next slide. My keyboard works. So this is case three. Case three is when the word ends in a long vowel. You will drop the long vowel, but instead of adding the sukun, as we talked about for the first step last time, you put the corresponding short vowel noise. So as you can see, we have a ya at the end of tamshi, and it becomes amshi. You wouldn't add a sukun, you just add the kasra because it's a ya. And that brings us to conjugation table I made. Um, this just kind of goes over all of the three examples I have and how they're conjugated in each of the forms, and how that kind of goes with all of the different rules I laid out in the first conjugation slide, talking about how like you would drop the wow in the dual tense and stuff like that. But moving on to the next slide. This video I have, I can't skip through it, so I'm going to put a link in the description to see if that will solve this issue. I don't know if it'll take you to the exact timestamp, but if it doesn't, if I can't find a way to work that out, I will just include a timestamp next to it to jump to in this video, because it just lists a bunch of examples. It's 2 to 3 minutes. It's a 12-minute video, but the last segment's like 2 to 3 minutes, because most of it's just her going over what I've already said. But yeah, moving on to the next slide. Sorry about that. Now, but being polite. So this is kind of something that I watched another, or read through another article on. You can add lam or fahlam to the beginning of the words to make it a little, to kind of take the edge off of it. Instead of being like, do this, it's more like, please do this. Except that's not really one-to-one, it's more like, let's do this. A little bit less like, or like, let them do this. For this, you do have to go back to the present tense conjugation. And it can be done in any of the tenses, not just second person. Like one of the examples I saw was using Marie Antoinette. It was like, let them eat cake, and such. I think it was la yakol ka. I forget what cake is. Ka ki. No, that's it. All right, not important though. Here we go. Next slide. So the imperative in English is kind of just what we've talked about in all the examples. It's very simple. It's just kind of like verb object in the second person. Like pass the pepper. Give me the fry. Give me a fry. It can get more complex, but that kind of comes down to when you're getting when orders get more complex. Similar to Arabic, but it's kind of the same. It's more just how you're saying it to somebody and when. So like, if I were to look at someone and say like, you will go to the store tomorrow, if they were already planning to go to the store tomorrow and I'm not asking them for anything, that's just kind of me stating it. If I say you will go to the store tomorrow to like my sister and she had no plans beforehand, that is me asking her to do something. I guess with that tone though, it doesn't really, I don't think she'd say yes. Sounds very kind of mean. But then that brings us to when I exactly studied in English. I never actually studied in English, so other than when I was fact checking what I was saying before, I found a couple of articles and like read through them on master class. But I did study it in Spanish, but I remember almost nothing from that because it was in high school, and I was not great at Spanish. But it was similar to Arabic from what I do remember in Spanish as well, where it was kind of just like a different conjugation would be issued to it, and you would kind of keep the word the same otherwise. Keep the sentence the same otherwise. I could be wrong on that though, because my Spanish is rough and I was having trouble finding good articles that I could wrap my head around. And then, so it was kind of weird to me that this wasn't in the book because it feels like a useful skill to have in a language. Because asking for things is a big part of communication. Like, asking for food where the train station is, what everyone wants to do, just trying to voice discomfort. But it also kind of, it was really, like, it felt like something that was easier to pick up once you got over, like, the initial, like, leap of getting the whole conjugations down, like, just the general, like, idea of it and how it looks is also kind of its own thing in Arabic, so you can know like, oh, this is someone asking for something when you're reading like a book, or trying to talk to someone and you hear this, although I don't know this would be entirely expressed verbally based on what some of the other videos I watched said. But just that in general seems like a decent, like a useful skill to have when in a language, is being able to kind of let people know, especially if you're working in a different country with without like knowledge of the language, or are having to interpret orders that aren't in your language if you're an employee in that country. But yeah, uh, so for the questions for everyone watching the video is how often do you use the imperative in English? And would you have wanted this included in Al Kitab? Like, would this have been something that uh, you think deserves a grammar section on one of the lessons? That's just the general gist of the questions I have. Uh, so hey, in conclusion, this is the last slide I had to reshoot because of things, but uh, we it was a great 4 semesters in this class. I feel like I learned a lot, and learning a second language isn't always a bad thing. Isn't a bad thing at all. I don't think you can really think of it as one, but if I had to give some advice, I would just say keep with it because knowing it and being able to function in a second language is great. I don't think I'm at that level yet, but I'd like to stick with Arabic and try and get to the end of that. Uh, but it's honestly been a fun time in this class. It's been engaging, and thanks for the good academic year. Okay, so this one is just my glossary slide. That's just all of the words I used that weren't in our textbooks that I could find. So, yeah, and that's signing off.